Okay, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the City of Groton Committee of the Whole for Monday, April 28, 2025. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Hedrick, Deputy Mayor Depot, Councilor Talley, Councilor Sheffield, and Councilor Piazza are present.
Okay, perfect. All right, new business or referral, board member application, youth advisory. Mary? Well,
The applicant never reached back
okay.
about coming, but
So we have an application for Denise Sanchez for Youth Advisory Committee. Your information,
oh, are you?
there she is. You want to come on up real quick? And
Thank you so much.
perfect.
How are you?
Good, thanks. Thank you for coming. So we have your application for youth advisory, and I'll open the floor to the council for any questions or comments. Deputy Mayor Depot.
I just wanted to say, I did review your resume, and it makes total sense to be involved in the Youth Advisory Board, considering what you do for a living. I think it'll be a real asset to our community to have someone like you on there, and I just want to say thank you for volunteering, because we can't do it without volunteers, and I know we just reactivated this committee a couple of years ago, and it's been kind of up and down with members, and it's a difficult one to keep full. So thank you for doing that, and I'm excited that we seem to have more engagement on that committee, and we're looking forward to doing more activities with you. So thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll take a motion to move this to mayor and council of May 5th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You're muted?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. All right, thank you very much for coming out, short and sweet.
Thank you.
Okay, Finance Department suspense tax list.
So this is the list that we get every year from the tax collector. These are taxes, they are not considered they're considered uncollectible from their stance, however, they're not written off per se. So if one of these individuals on this list does come back, these taxes still can be collectible. They just feel that they can't collect them based on that the individual's moved. They've sent multiple tax bills out, so it's really to clean up their accounts receivable listing. Like I said, we receive it every year. If you go through it, most all of these are motor vehicles or motor vehicle supplemental taxes. And then there's a couple of personal property for businesses that have closed since then. So you won't see real estate on here because that would go to a tax auction. So it's really just motor vehicles and, like I said, a couple of personal properties going through the list quickly. But this is something that we do receive from the tax collector every year.
Okay, questions or comments? Okay, I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of May 5th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Groton Utilities, Bill? We'll start with the bucket truck purchase.
Okay. Okay, good evening all. So tonight, requesting replacement for a 2010 large bucket truck that we have in the fleet. We typically will get 10, 12 years expected life out of a truck. This one here is 15 years old. It was one that we kept up in Basra. It was a hybrid unit. We put some money into it with batteries, etc., but it truly has reached its end of life. The new truck will be purchased from Alltech Industries. We'll be using Sourcewell, as you know, for cooperative sourcing program with Connecticut, right? The truck has it's a 2025 Freightliner chassis with a diesel, Cummins diesel in it, which is tried and true for the team. It's got a 55-foot boom with a platform that 2 men can work from. Currently being built and became available to us. With your approval, we can receive the truck late July into August. Cost for the truck, including contingency, is $300,000 to be paid from capital budget.
Any questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Depot.
I just want to say, I know that keeping track of all our vehicles is a whole job in itself. And looking at it, it's a huge amount of money, but this is how we keep the power on and how we respond so quickly is by replacing them in a responsible timeframe. And I just wanted to thank you for always being on top of it, because one of the things that I think all of us get the most compliments on is the utility's ability to fix problems when they arise. So, and this is an important part of that. So thank you for all your work, making sure that this doesn't fall or get delayed because of all the delays that we've had the last couple of years with vehicles. Obviously, we don't want to run into that problem ever.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of May 5th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. All right, excavator?
Okay, this request is for a new piece of equipment to be purchased from H.O. Penn. It's a Caterpillar 309 excavator. Comes with the attachments, which include a 24-inch bucket, a 48-inch mulcher, and a mow deck. Again, we'll be using Sourcewell for this for this purchase as well. This particular unit will be used to support, what we do is we do a lot of vegetation management. We clean out, in addition to that, right-of-ways, so personal properties, anywhere we need to get with the medium voltage stuff, so the high-powered lines that you guys see. We'll use this particular unit to support that work. Typically, we have a small unit right now, but it's not capable of handling the job. So it's not very good on inclines. It doesn't have the ability to hit and take care of large, vegetation as it grows. And we're behind the schedule on it. So what we end up doing is renting a machine, and that costs us roughly $25,000 a year for the rental, just to kind of keep up with the appropriate machine. Another thing that we can use this for, we have a lot of what we call XLP circuits. So those are underground utilities. They typically will feed apartment complexes, new car washes, new apartment complexes, those types of things. We have roughly 70 of those circuits that we need to upgrade, meaning the cable's getting old, it's starting to deteriorate. We have a plan to address 7 of those a year to try to keep up. But we do, with that being said, we also have failures. So when we have failures, we really need to be timely to get in there, excavate the dirt, pull new wire or run new conduit for that matter. It could be both. So on emergencies, we get stuck. Can we get somebody to bring in the equipment for us? We always don't have the right equipment to do the job. So again, back to Deputy Mayor's comment about being timely, this will greatly help the team. The total for this purchase, including contingency, is $196,252.51, funded by the bonded capital budget.
Okay, questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Depot.
My question is really probably for the finance director.
Okay.
Can you explain how we balance bonding? Like when we decide what to bond and what not to bond? Like why are we bonding this vehicle and not the other vehicle?
Yeah, I'm gonna look into that because this, I don't believe is out of bonded. I believe it is out of the
Just
non-bonded,
capital?
yeah.
Non-bonded capital,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
Because of the-
Typically, it would be, and Ron, and thank you. I wasn't sure, I didn't have time to check, I should have checked, but I wasn't sure. I knew we had money remaining on the bonded capital, but typically fleet and equipment will come out
Let's
of.
get the answer
Capital.
before
I will do that.
next week. But Deputy Mayor, to answer your question, because you did ask a question, we didn't answer it. The answer is typically you bond things with long shelf lives, typically 20 years or more. So that's usually the rule of thumb on bonding.
Yeah, and this particular unit is got a 15-year life expect, 15 to 20 maybe. So you're right.
Does that answer your question, the question you asked?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great
Any
question.
other questions or comments? And we will have the answer, it'll be in the resolution, should you decide. So right now, I'm getting
Sure
ready to
thing.
ask, any other questions? Okay, I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council of May 5th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all for your
So
time.
the resolution, next week, will have the funding source.
Thank you.
Somehow I missed you, Sierra, so you're up next, Economic Development Minor Facade Grant for the Bill Memorial Library.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I just want to note that Wendy, the Executive Director of Bill Memorial Library, is with us on Zoom. So the EDC has reviewed the minor facade improvement grant for Bill Memorial Library. They just did a replacement of 44 windows, 9 of which are street-facing windows, and all but one of these 9 windows required a historic restoration for their project. Bill Memorial Library did receive a Neighborhood Assistance Act grant from Groton Utilities to help with this project. It did go over, and they were paid out of pocket for the remaining $3,000, but they were requesting the $2,500 to be reimbursed for them through the minor facade improvement grant. They've completed the application process. You guys also have some before and after pictures of those windows. Also, they have no pending litigation, and they are in good standing on all of their accounts with the city of Groton. So this EDC is recommending the full $2,500 reimbursement to Bill Memorial Library, and that is why I'm here today for you.
Okay, questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Depot?
I just wanted to say, I think this is a good use of the facade improvement grant. I know that for libraries, funding is difficult, and it, it's always unpredictable. My question is, how much is left for this grant for this fiscal year?
For this fiscal year, a little bit over 28.
So we have room for
One
essentially one more applicant?
Yes.
Okay. And do you have anyone in the pipeline for that, or?
No one that has finished everything that, all the requirements yet, so I am open to, new applicants coming
Okay.
through.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I also just didn't know if Wendy had any words that she wanted to say, because I noticed that she put her camera on. No? Okay, you're good.
Any other,
Thank you.
any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of May 5th, 2025.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sierra.
Thank you.
Parks and Recreation. Mary? So the first one is electric boat donation.
Forgot those are on my head. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I come today because I've gotten 2 donations. The electric boat donation is actually to support our match, dollar match that we do with our EPT at the farmer's market. So if somebody comes in and puts $20 on their EBT card, they get actually 40, because we solicit with local businesses. GU's been doing it for a number of years. We finally found a contact at General Dynamics Electric Boat, and they're generously giving us a $2,000 donation to help offset our EPT match, dollar-to-dollar match for this upcoming season.
Okay, questions or comments? Because it is a donation, it does have to come to council. Okay, I'm hearing none, I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of May 5th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Farmers Market Grant?
So the next one was, back in 2023, June, we applied for a farm viability grant from the Department of Agriculture. When we got $5,000 that year, it came up again, so we reached out and put our application together. We're excited to celebrate our 10th year of the farmers market being at Washington Park. So kind of use that as our theme of growing the City of Groton Farmers Market and beyond. We applied for a little bit more than what we got, but we did get $15,600 to help with the EPT again, help with promotion. With the 10th year, we kind of like to do some things that are, probably get a bag, don't, like bags for people to, that say the 10th annual or 10th anniversary of the Groton City Farmers Market, and different things. So this is a 18 to 24 month grant, so it goes a little longer than the previous one. So we'll have it over the next 2 years of the market through the winter and whatnot. So we're kind of excited about this. We asked for a little bit more, but we're 3 times more than what we got the last time, so.
Okay, questions or comments on the grant, Deputy Mayor Depot?
I just want to say, keeping an eye out for these grants is obviously so important, especially something like this. Obviously, we could dump tax dollars into the farmer's market if that was what people wanted, but our goal is to not do that and to still provide a resource for the community. And I think, it's a very popular thing that we do, and it's been growing, and I know people are excited about it. So I'm definitely going to be letting people know that, we got this big grant. It'll be even better this year. So thank you to Tim for his hard work.
Yes.
I saw him at the last one. I attended in the municipal building. And just to let people know, like, that's what we do. You and your team are
Yeah.
looking to improve it. So please frequent the farmer's market as much as possible, because people behind the scenes are working hard to make it good for you.
I will also share, we're one of the only markets in this area that actually do the EBT, SNAP. Niantic doesn't do it, Basra doesn't do it. Ledger used to do it. Tim seems to think now it's through the vendors do it themselves if they want to, but so for us to have that match to match, and the EBT really does benefit our market and in our community.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll take a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of May 5th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're going to move into budget presentation. Mary, say where you are. So Parks and Rec, we'll start there. That starts on page 85. And then we'll get into the actual, the meat of it on 87. But Mary, I'll let you present your budget.
Okay, so as you all know, my budget's broken down into 2 parts. We have the recreation side, and then we have the maintenance side. The recreation side is up 2.3%. Some of that is obviously contractual salaries for my administrative assistant, increase for myself. Minimum wage went up 66 cents this year, so we have some increase with that. Our biggest part of our recreation side of the budget is contractual services. Last year, we took our summer playground program to a weekly fee as opposed to a one lump sum fee for the summer, but we included field trips with that. So we a little off with about $5,200 off in my budget last year, not knowing how many kids were going to register, what trips we were doing, and what the bus fees were going to be. So we kind of compensated for that. We added that so we could continue to do those trips that we do, but we are looking at maybe doing more services where agencies or entertainment comes to the kids, so we don't have as much bus cost. So those are the 2 areas mainly where we had an increase. That in the EPT, as you know, we just get some grant money, but we do have to pay our vendors when they get their, I call it their plastic money at the market, and then we have to, we get a bill, we pay them out at the end of every month of the market, so June, July, August, September, October. And that was because we're doing the match and we're getting these grants monies, we have a little bit more expense with the EPT and the recreation side of things.
Any questions on Councilor Sheffield?
I see the summer playground looks like a decrease for the proposed budget this year. Is there a reason?
Yes, the reason for that is we use the new school, well, it's not new anymore, but we use the public school, and they are only allowing us to have a 7-week program. They will not allow us to be in through the 16th. So instead of an 8-week program, we're doing a 7-week program.
Okay.
So that's, a week less of payroll.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, let's move on to maintenance. And that starts on page 89.
All right, so my
Actually, the breakdown is on 91, sorry.
Yes, sorry, yep. So the maintenance side of our budget has increased 33.29%. A majority of this is my capital improvement, my CIP, my reserve fund, wherever it's listed in my budget, went up from 115, it went up $271,108. These are some projects that we've put by we haven't addressed, we need to address. So that's a big part of it. There's also in my contractual services, an increase for the ADA study that the city's planning on conducting. My share of that was a $40,000 increase in my contractual services, which was it was $5,000 before, now it's $45,000, so there's an increase, those two increases there. The other increase is under materials and supplies. For the beach and the park, materials are getting more expensive, certain things that we use in the park. So we want to make sure that we have the dollars to continue to maintain our facilities.
And then if you go to page 89, at the bottom of the capital, there's a list of the costs for the capital projects.
And I can talk a little bit about some of these. So the restrooms, so back when we were all working with ARPA funding and trying to get some pricing, we did go out to bid to redo the bathrooms at Washington Park and also to re-roof some of the pavilions, not some, all, some of the buildings, and then siding so everything's uniform. So we do have some pricing, we got some bids. So this dollar amount is based on what we got for bids back in the fall. So it's not just a number I pulled out of the air, it's a number based on what we got in for bids that we didn't move forward with. The tractor, we already have $45,000 put away. Our current tractor that we have at the park was bought in 2008. We'd like to take that one and replace the one at the beach that's 32 years old that we used to groom the sand and get a new one for work at the park. Washington Park does, so Eastern Point Beach currently has security cameras so we can see what's going on. The park doesn't, and with all the new improvements that we've made with the basketball courts, the tennis courts, the playground, things that we're improving there, we'd like to be able to, we have had some vandalism in our restrooms, we've been locking them down at night, so we kind of like to be able to have some, eyes on the sky and working with that. So I worked with the chief on this and got a quote for some security cameras at the park. And then the guardrail fence is at the Sub Memorial, not the Sub Vets, the Sub Memorial, which we own on Bridge and Thames. The guardrail fence is in dire need of repair. If a car went through it right now, it would probably go through it. So we want to get that repaired.
Yeah,
Or
that's something
replaced.
that's actually been
Yep.
pushed a couple years,
Yeah.
and we like to get
Yeah.
that. Okay, I'll open the floor for discussion. Deputy Mayor Depot?
I know that the restrooms at the park and the pavilion have been needing some attention, and we are doing a lot of improvements around the park and the beach this year already. Is there a reason that we wouldn't maybe bond that with some other projects, or so that 200, because that's obviously a large number, so that doesn't hit all in one year? Is there a reason why we're doing that?
We've been looking at potentially putting a bond package together. We haven't. This was just to move this project forward, is why it's put into the budget. But it is something that could be bonded. However, it would take additional time to get that package together. It would need to go through a couple of different approval processes, starting with the council and then the Freeman and all of that, and then the actual issuance of the bond. So it would take some time to do that. So that's kind of why but the original plan, like Mary had stated, was when we were looking at the ARPA funds, and we did put it out to bid, and then a couple of things, or one thing in particular, came in more than what we thought, which kind of pushed this project off, and based on some of the submissions that we received. So then we just figured, based on the need to do this project, we would include it in this year's budget, just to try to get it done before, or in this season.
And
What-
we do have some roofs that need to be replaced, and the bathrooms are in need overall.
And so if this is included in your budget for this year, it probably wouldn't get done until next season though, right? Because this starts July 1, which is already in the middle of the summer season. Or,
Yeah, but I would personally like to try to push for the fall, because that way they're ready for the spring season when we open the park. The park gets busy in March, April, May with baseball and Little League, and so if it gets approved, I would try to work with, we already have the RFP, we just kind of have to meld it together. We have it kind of separated. We get it melded together, if we could get it out sometime in July or August, and then get it done late September, when the fields are done use the second week in October. So it's still good, but pavilions same time frame. So it'd give us time to get that done before the colder. I mean, our falls have been a lot much drier and warmer than our springs have. So I would try to get them done sooner rather than later.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Chief? So fire department is on page 59. And the actual budget side that you're looking at is probably on page 61.
All right, good evening. Yeah, I guess I would just draw your attention quickly to page 60, which is the funding side, the cost center. And next year, we do anticipate a increase from West Pleasant Valley, I think partly due to their grand list growing in the large, as I'm sure you've all seen, apartment complex that's going up on the old William Sealy property. So that's a positive for us, at least money-wise. It will require a lot of resources when that's fully occupied. They have started occupying one building. In the budget section, page 61, full-time employees, as you can see, went up some. That is, for the deputy chief and myself, there's a slight raise in there. And there's also, Deputy Chief Sergeant has indicated that he plans to retire next spring. So, yeah, June, he's looking at June 1st. So we did budget some extra money in there so that hopefully we could have some overlap with whoever is going to be the new deputy chief and Ted on his way out. So there'll be a training period there for planning purposes. As you go down, overtime, stipends are contractual, safety incentives, clothing allowance is contractual, sell back a time off, which is holiday time. The guys obviously have to work, so they get paid out holiday time. That's contractual. The insurances, as you can see, are done by Ron, so they're all adjusted for inflation. Workers' comp is going up. It went up. There was a big bump this year. I'm not quite sure why, but it goes up again next year. If you look down at heart and hypertension, I'll just point that out because it's $50,000 budgeted every year. We estimate about $10,000 will be used this year. That's for firefighters who have retired, who have put in a claim for heart and hypertension. And so our normal amount is around $10,000, but if somebody has some type of problem, has an operation, we have to fund that. So we always put that money in there just in case to try and cushion the blow if, God forbid, somebody had to have an operation or something of that nature. And then the contractual services, you notice, are $20,000 in the current budget. They'll go down to 10. That, for my budget, is lawyer fees. And we're currently negotiating a contract for the firefighters, and that's why we budget $20,000 in that year. We hope, we're in the process of negotiating, and we hope that we'll have that, negotiated this year as the contract runs out the end of June. And so that's why that's lowered. If there are any specific questions.
Any questions for the chief? Deputy Mayor Depot.
Thank you, Mayor. When was the last time we used more than, say, 15,000 for heart and hypertension? Do you know?
I don't know. Last year we used close to 12. I don't know, Ron, do you know?
There was one within the last, I feel like 6 or 7 years, where there was a surgery that came through that was significant. But yeah, like the chief said, normally it is around that 10 to 15.
And if your budget didn't have enough for whatever, where would that money come from? So we put 50,000 and you need 100 next year for some reason. Where would you get that money from?
I don't know. My budget, and then, if the budget went into the, red. Capital, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that would be handled. There was one year, it was before I was chief, where somebody had an operation. I think it was $100,000. I'm rounding numbers, but it was definitely more than, no, it was more than $100,000, because we used to have $100,000 in here because we paid a pension for somebody. I won't get into the details, but it was by law, and she passed, and so we got to lower that number to 50. We did 3 or 4 years ago, but I don't know what they did when that number was really big.
Would that, so I guess this question is for the mayor or finance director. So if that were to happen, would that be an appropriate use for contingency funds?
So what we would do would work with the chief to try to keep within his budget, to reallocate things around, move things around that can be moved. However, if it does appear that there is no way to do that, say there's, and I'm just putting out a $200,000 claim where there wouldn't be a way to there, but yes, we could use contingency funds to help cover that. But again, we only have 115,000 of contingency funds, which is just a number that we've maintained, and we have not increased that in the 10 years that I've been here. We've just left it at the 115.
And what's, have we ever used all the contingency funds
We have not,
since you've been here? No.
there was a couple of years where we have, I believe that year that heart and hypertension came in, we did. And then there was also, we used a portion of it for one of the fire trucks when we had the emergency repairs for it. But I can't think of a time where we had 115 right to the dollar.
Okay. And then, under facility material and supply, your budget from last year was 21,000, and your estimate for this year is 44,000, but you're still only asking for 21,000?
Yeah, so if you remember, one of the HVAC units at Company 2, the Eastern Point Station, broke this year. It died. And we have been fighting that for a long time. We believe it was wrong-sized when the building was originally built. And so we replaced that, and that was $23,000. So if you notice on some of my estimates, I have like equipment, $5,000 in equipment, repair. I think I estimated I might spend $3,000. I'm trying to keep that less to offset, but that was, something that we had to replace. And then, I'm working the best I can to, as Ron said, reappropriate, try not to spend, put off if I can to next budget things to help offset that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments on the fire department budget? Okay, thank you, chief. All right, Bill? So next is sanitation, and then we'll do building after that. Okay, that's on page, starts on 74, but 76 is where the accounts are. So Bill, let's do an overview.
Right now, for the proposed for 25-26 is 1.246511 for the year. We have primarily within this contract, it's heavily workforce and contractual. We have, one of the big things that goes into it is the truck fund that we normally have, where there's an expense that's saved quite significantly. We have that zeroed out over the past 2 years. That's primarily the big thing. Outside of that, it is a lot of contractual and labor within this contract.
Okay, questions or comments on the sanitation budget? Deputy Mayor Depot?
Thank you, Mayor. On your tipping fees, we budgeted 275 last year, but we only used we're only estimating that we're gonna use 217. But then we're budgeting 263 for next year. Is that a planned, are they increasing their fees? Or is that, what's the reason for that difference?
based off of the tipping fees that we had with everything else that came in. We tallied up what we had for total waste that got brought out, along with what we had for charged fees, along with the increase in that. That's where we came up with the number in that.
So, but if we only used $217,000 last year, what is the reason we're estimating that we're gonna need $263,000 next year?
We want to make sure that we have enough so we don't have to come back to you guys as well for if we need more funds for that cost, that line item.
But is that because we're expecting an increase in trash, or because we're expecting to pay more in tipping fees per pound or whatever? Well, I don't know how, per truck. I don't know how we pay it, but.
To be truthful, when it comes through, it's an unknown. You have, if you take into a population cost as well, along with what we have coming in with the growth within the city, along with what we get charged out for any increases that come with where we go and have our waste taken care of, that will kind of factor into that. But when it comes down to it in total, whatever we have when we're going per truck, based off of each week and each run, it can increase or decrease based off of that. But this allows us to have a safety net to where we can comfortably take care of what we have, as well as if it comes to an increase, it's not gonna be something that's gonna be anything as far as a detrimental increase, and we don't have to come back to you guys. It allows us that safety net to where we can operate in a clean, effective, and productive manner as we continue to go forward.
I thought in one of the reviews that we did, that we identified that the tipping fees did go up this year.
They did as well.
All right, well,
It's,
that's
but
what the
with that,
deputy was
that's
asking.
also, it's not to the point where it was 275, where we went to 217, but the tipping fees did go up, but it wasn't to the extent of the 275 like you were asking.
Okay, so this may be a stupid question. Do they usually increase tipping fees like on an annual basis? Is that like a normal?
From the time I've been here, from what I look back on, but they have a general increase, just, I don't, it's not the proper term, it's not cost of living increase. I don't know if it's a cost of operating increase, if that's a better way to put it, but yes, they do have a cost of operating increase each year roughly that gets taken into effect with it.
Ron, sorry, Director Uhas, do you know what the year-end number was for the previous fiscal year that's not on here, by chance?
It was just under 220.
For year ending 23?
Correct. If the report that I'm looking at is accurate, I have one that goes back. So there's two pieces of this. There's two tipping fees to keep in mind. There's sanitation and there's also recycling.
Yes.
So there is two separate ones.
You have to take that into consideration as well.
I'm sorry, Director Uhas, do you also have what the budget was for that year?
I do not have that.
I can,
You said that.
I can look it up, but I thought you may have it. Okay, and if your budget, if you were to go over that budgeted amount in your tipping fees, what would you do?
I have to
Where
come
would you,
back
where
to you
would you
fine people.
pull? Is there somewhere else in your budget that you would be able to pull money? Or is there nowhere else in your budget that
Just-
you'd be able to possibly rearrange or change something to compensate?
One of the things I'll say is that I go over with the mayor and Mr. US pretty frequently with what we have to work with, and whether it's too much, too little, if there's fluffed in an area, anything along those lines. That might not be the proper word, but it's enough to where we're making sure we're working out something where we're doing the best that we can by the public and the tax dollar, and we're not trying to waste anything that we can. And that's why if we do go over, we've tried to calculate whatever odds and ends that we possibly can. And it's down to, whatever minute details we can. And if it were to be that case, we'd come back here and we'd come to you guys. And that's about as,
we would need to find it within the budget to, just to keep in mind that once your budget is approved and it is approved by the Freeman, we cannot spend more than that bottom line without going back to them. So that we can't, so it would need to go through the whole process if there was something that wouldn't. So again, it would need to be worked out within this budget to the best of the ability to keep it here. If for some reason it wasn't able to, then contingency. However, contingency is used up, then it would require to go through the whole process again for
Okay.
additional funding.
And then, I think last question. Can you explain on the financing plan, that money under the recycling line and the bulky waste line, where that money comes from? Or Director Uhas, I suppose, maybe.
So the recycling is the metal dumpster that we have out back. There's fees for that. There's also the containers that are sold, the toters. And then the bulky waste is for the bulky waste pickup. So if somebody calls and needs a bulky waste pickup for brush, there's a fee for that. For appliances, there's a fee for that. So that's what makes up those.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Norris?
Talking about contingency. In fiscal year '26, we have 14,000 earmarked for contingency. Now, that contingency is not specifically designated for any type of expense. So in this particular case, if we set a dollar figure and it does go over that, we do have contingency to backfill.
Correct. Like I said, there is that 115,000. However, just kind of going back, so if we, with the heart and hypertension, if we needed that from the fire department and we needed it for this budget here, it could potentially be used quickly. And that usually does come back to council if the contingency is needed. So that way you know that we're using that contingency. We just usually don't just grab it.
So I should know this, but, so any dollar that needs to be spent out of the contingency needs to come to council for approval for actual use?
Not, I wouldn't say any dollar, but usually we do try to let council know where that contingency is being used. And most of the time, it's something that is over the threshold that needs your approval. You know, it's not going to be a $5,000 purchase that'll be coming out of contingency. Usually it's something more significant. So it'll come to council for approval because it'll be over currently the $10,000 threshold.
In your times here, has there ever been a time where we have not used all the contingency?
There has been times where we have not. The departments have moved things around within the budget if something comes up, or we had years where we haven't had anything out of the ordinary.
Got it.
So in the reviews of these budgets, we went through extra reviews because I wanted to try to minimize the increases. So we have really cut the budgets tight. The contingency is for all the departments. So if we cut the budgets and they're really tight and then we go over, then that could put pressure on the amount that we have from contingency. I mean, I know you know that, but that's the challenge with trying to have a balanced budget and with that. But this is my budget, and then the council will come in with what the council decides to do. So did that answer your question? Yes. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Sheffield?
The diesel fuel, are you anticipating fuel costs to rise? I guess it's an extra 5,000, it seems, on the diesel fuel. Or is
So
that-
what we did to take the diesel fuel and regular fuel into account was we took what we had spent in total based off of the tank of what we have for the maximum capacity, based off at the price per gallon, and then you look at whatever we have for any sort of economic futures, and then based off of that, whether fuel is going to rise based off of how much, and then calculate that into the value. And that's kind of what we came up with. I referenced that with Mr. Uhas to make sure I wasn't going nanners, and we came to an accurate number with that, and that's kind of where we went, especially based off of previous years and what was spent, how we went, and based off of what was gone through, because we also allocate it throughout. And then we see where at the year end, which department spends what, and then how that goes through as a total, and then kind of go from there.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on. We'll move on to public building, which starts on 79. And 81 is where we get into the expenditures. Bill?
So for what has been proposed for a total was $217,854 with a total of a 2.94% change. What you're gonna see is, the primary big expense is contractual services, which is the same as the dollar figure beforehand. Contractual services in this event, 60, that is essentially, it's a larger value, but it's an unknown value that we have to have. It takes into account for a year process of what we have. For example, for this year, when we went and worked on the PD plumbing, for the locker rooms, anything along those lines, it's more so it's the planning for the unknown that you don't know. That's what the contractual services kind of take into effect. And then based off of that is where we kind of work and allocate money and fund, towards per project.
Any, Counselor Sheffield?
It seems like you hadn't had to spend too much on material and supply, but, the 40,000 allocation still there. Is that kind of for an emergency if you need additional material supply to?
Precisely.
Okay.
Precisely. So we try to do as much as we can in-house.
Okay.
That includes in what you're currently seeing in here. We try to do what we can in-house because obviously, in my opinion, personally, the more you can do in-house, the longer you can stretch a penny. And it also benefits your employees because we're an open shop, it gives more work to the union workers, and then that kind of provides more, and we can kind of flourish the talent that we have in-house here. So what we try to go and push that as much as we can, but there's certain things that go beyond our grasp, scope, and what we have here for any issues or problems that come up that we need to just either fix because of a speed sense, where it's something that we wouldn't be able to do in a timely manner that needs to be fixed in that way, or just it's so specialized that it's outside of the skill set.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Depot?
So when someone says, for any costs that might arise, it's a little nebulous. So I think we need to define on these lines what that cost might be. So under contractual services, can you give me specific examples of what you used that for this year?
Okay.
And what you're thinking will fall under that for next year that rationalizes keeping that budget at $65,000?
So the primary focus with this, and the reason we kept it at that number, is you have to remember this building was erected in 1964? 66. And based off of that, that's where we're kind of having to fast forward with whatever updates that we can. For example, what we had with the PD plumbing in the locker rooms, we had inadequate pitch in plumbing, as well as essentially a failing pipe system. So what was done was we went and took the pipe system that was currently in place, and to make up for that fact, we had it relined, and that gave us a new plumbing system to help make up for the inadequacies that we had previously. But then you also have to take into account we had issues with any sort of leaks, whether it be the roof system or the HVAC system, where we have to look into. It's just any facet of the building you have to have routine maintenance on, and that's where this is going to come into effect. There's going to be things that come up that are not foreseen. That's the whole reason for that. The specifics for defining it, you can't say what's going to go wrong, because right now nothing has been wrong, but there's been things that have come up that you cannot plan for. That's the whole point of having it at that value, because right now it's done us right. It's allowed us to take any issues head on that we have encountered and do the right thing to get them fixed.
There have been some roof leaks that you guys chased and worked on. We've also need to continue to look at duct cleaning here in the building, and I don't know if we have estimates for that, but I know
That's
that
coming through.
that's another thing that is on our list of things that we need to do.
As well as
Here.
the mold in my area.
And then there may be some things in the police side
Yeah, as
that we're
well.
gonna be looking at.
It was mine and the police as well. Yeah, that we've been taking care of. They're all kind of looped in. Those are, those sounds like a lot, but that's the general where it's kind of been the most effective.
So the piping project of lining the pipes, was that planned for, I know you didn't prepare last year's budget, correct?
No,
Was that planned for in the budget when we picked this number 65,000 last year? I don't remember.
That project was actually funded by ARPA, the pipelining.
So that is not in this contractual services expense from this year?
There was some work that was done prior, some scoping of that system.
yes.
That was done, that would have been in this budget, like the carpeting for this room. There's a heater replacement in the back.
Also,
And-
I would say, not to interrupt, I apologize. The previous attempts to figure out what the issues were, those were also taken from this budget to make it go through. So where, even though, forgive me if I don't have the right words to say when it's coming through, but they weren't the fixes that were needed. But what was done to try to figure out the problems at hand, they were taken from this budget. And it was enough to responsibly allocate so that we could work forward and diagnose and work correctly and responsibly towards finding a solution.
From contractual services? I'm gonna ask you the same question about general materials and supply. Because your budget was 40,000 and you only spent 15,190, and we're asking for 40,000 again. So, and even the prior year, we only used 25,668 under general material and supply. So, one, that 15,000, can you give me some specific examples of what that included this year? And are there specific things that we know are going to cost more than that in the next year? Because, so if I'm looking at this budget, even if 15,000 is a super low number over the last 5 years, right? Then you would think, okay, that's how much at minimum it costs to manage the building from your department. So then, what is the reason that the $40,000 would be needed? Is there something that you foresee would cost additional money? Because I understand what you're saying, you know, issues might arise. But even the year prior, when we spent 10,000 more, it still wasn't close to that 40,000 number. And I'll have to go back and look at like the 5-year historic number of it, which I should have done before, but I didn't think of it. But what are we using to get that number? Because if we're just using, hey, we had that last year, it feels nice to have a little buffer. Like, to me, that's not easy to explain to a resident that we just picked a number that we know will be good, as opposed to, well, we know this carpet costed however many $1,000. This is how much supplies we used for this quarter of the building. And guess what? The other quarter of the building is gonna need similar maintenance next year. And so we're gonna use that number to predict, hey, we're probably gonna need that amount of money to maintain this other part of the building to catch it up. Like, I know, you know, we spent some money in this room, which looks great, especially, you know, when we had the press conference the other day. This room looks so much better than it did previously. It's obviously valuable to put money into the building to make it look nice. But I need more details.
It's not just about making it pretty.
I didn't mean to
No.
imply that, but
I get
just,
it. I get it 110%. It's the other thing, just like anything else, when you think of a project going forward, you think any materials that you have at hand, there's always going to be an up cost in a material. So no matter what, each year that you go, you have to account for that unknown. And that could be anywhere from 2% to 5%, just like you would in a general budget sense. So you have to take that into account with chemicals, with any pads you use for cleaning, with any mop heads, with any plastics that you're going to use throughout. Anything along those lines, you have to factor in that cost increase just for a material.
okay.
That's going to happen every year, whether we like it or not. There's always going to be, because that's going to be a manufacturer that goes and puts that on their product no matter what, at the end of the day. So that's just the minute part. But then you also have to factor into the account that anything that we do, you have to think about when we go and we try to keep it in-house to keep it cheap. But if we take this and put that towards, say, a project end, think about the dollars to cents with keeping what we're using for in-house here, as opposed to farming out to some sort of third party or a subcontractor. And what that would do to the cost sense.
So,
Anything in-house, like I had stated previously, we try to go and keep it in-house as much as we can, because that's going to make the most responsible spend towards the tax dollar as humanly possible. That's why we try to have that number there. It's not just, when it came down to these, as far as each allocated cleaning pad, vacuum, anything like that, like I said, that's, I can get you that info, but it's to a point where what we have there for that number, it's to be responsible, make sure we have, I know, like you said, a buffer, which is not the best thing, but also take into account cost increases on chemicals, as well as any sort of equipment that needs to be exchanged out. So vacuums, any sort of mops, and when I say mops, I don't mean like a mop head going back and forth, like an automatic mop. If we were to get something new for a piece of equipment for the staff here, whether it be like a floor cleaner that can increase productivity, anything along those lines, that's what we have factored into that number.
so I am 100% on board with the staff needs to have the materials that they need to do their jobs well and to not struggle with, subpar things. But if I take this number, double it, and add 5%, it's still under $32,000. So that's where, to me, I struggle to say, yeah, 40,000 sounds good, because last year's number was 15.1, and like I said, even if that's the lowest we've used in 5 years, 10 years, even if I double it and add 5% to that doubled number, it still is 32,000, not 40,000. So that's why I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but to get specifics on what are the possible either areas of the building, or is there a specific supply that's going to be astronomically more expensive, to pinpoint the thought process into picking that number. And if the thought process into picking that number is that was last year's number and it worked out great, to me, I think in this economic climate, when we know that the town always increases taxes and ours go on top of that, I think that we need to be very thoughtful about what we do with our budget, because the taxpayers are paying attention, and the answer of that was last year's number and it did work great, we didn't need it, and it goes back into the general fund, which I understand, but essentially what we're saying is we're going to overtax you just in case. That's not what we're saying, but that is how some people will perceive it. And my goal when I'm asking questions is to make sure that I can combat that I can say, no, our public works director assures me he's got these 10 projects in line, and that's why that number needs to be that high. Or, like I said, like this part of the building, we did a ton of maintenance on, and the other half now, we're gonna super inspect next year and potentially do a bunch of maintenance. And so that's gonna be, we're predicting we're gonna need that money. So that's the only reason I'm harping on it, because I need to be able to explain that without a resident coming and saying, that sounds like you're overtaxing me to make your job easier.
Okay, so what is your specific ask so that I can get that to you? Get that to the council?
Well, I guess just my basic question
You want a breakdown of
is,
the 40 and a breakdown of the 15? Is that?
yes, and I'm not saying like I need every penny of every whatever, but what is there, parts of the building or certain projects or certain products that we're
Understand.
predicting are going to go that high?
Understand, we'll get you that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Sheffield?
We have to also think about materials with things now, prices going up for materials. If, let's say, materials come from another country with the tariffs. So sure, I guess it works out if we get materials, I guess, in America, but there may be materials coming from elsewhere that may be subject to a tariff, to where that increase of price for a supply or a material may, again, offset, hopefully, anything, like I said, that you, beyond the budget of, let's say, 15,000. but it may be a little bit higher because of a tariff cost of a material to where having that cushion isn't so much a bad idea. But I see what, Deputy Mayor's point is, to where you want to kind of make sure we're in that realm. But then again, if materials increase because of cost, then it's not a bad thing to have it safe buffer to keep it at that level right now, so.
One of the other things that we have to, that I do very much so, that's a portion of it, but one of the other things we have to take into account that's not thought of is, so some things like ceiling tiles. Right in here, for example, these aren't made anymore, what you see currently above you. So we have to format to a grid, a drop ceiling like layout. And you have to do that throughout because these aren't made. So if something here goes, there's no way of getting around it to get it. So there's things that you have to take into account that just aren't manufactured anymore, along with tariffs or anything else like that, that factor into that budget number. There's things like that. There's things like if you have, say, carpet where you can get, okay, they had this 10 years ago, they don't now. Now that means you have to redo an entire area of carpet rather than doing a patch of 4 squares. It goes from, that's where those buffer amounts come in to kind of make sure that we're doing this. Yes, that does seem outside where it seems when you look at that figure like a little much, but we're taking into account everything else that factors into within properly maintaining the building. It's something that can go, like I said, carpet can go from a $250 fix with 4 squares to, if they don't manufacture anything you have anymore, to $5,000. And that's an anticipated jump that you don't normally want to ever take into account, whether it's here or in your home. That's a lot, but it's one of those things that we're using as a safety net in here for that dollar amount. It's something that, again, when you have that, especially with our staff, which is gone above and beyond, I like to say this room is a prime example of what they have and the talents that they have and what they can do, and they're making sure to use what they have to the best of their abilities and what they've been given through what we have here within the city.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Depot?
I have an easy question for you that I forgot to ask. For public building, is there nothing that you use for supplies that would fall under capital needs at all? I know it looks like we haven't historically put anything in like capital reserves for anything, but
No, not historically. It's more for those repairs that come up for when a door breaks, when something comes up. It's usually not a capital project per se. It's more just the daily operations.
because there's
of this
no
budget.
real big equipment or anything that you use for the building necessarily.
And if it was a bigger project, it would most likely be bonded or paid through a grant or something like that, like with the windows and those types of things.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Counselor Norris?
This is probably the wrong time to say this, but listening to the presentations over the past few weeks, there seems to be a common phrase or feeling that makes me feel there's a lot of just in case in budgets, that there's so many different words have been used that I don't want to use. I do not have a problem whatsoever if someone can say to me, I have $100,000 and these are the 10 things I'm going to do and this is what it's going to cost. What I do have an issue with is, but we also padded it just in case. Because my feeling is that's what the contingency's for. Just in case is the contingency. I understand increasing materials and supplies and whatever else based on, what the international, national economic folks are saying. Hey, we should look at a 3 to 7% increase on supplies and everything else. Hey, I know there's a big question about the tariffs and what it's going to cost when we buy chlorine and all that. I mean, there's nothing we can do for that, and I don't know if we should budget for that. So all I'm asking is, like, be able to give us those answers. I heard tonight, just in case the staff needs a new cleaning machine. Well, did you plan to buy a new cleaning machine in 2026? Because if not, don't budget for it. I mean, just like your own house, like, hey, darling, we need a new vacuum, but we can't afford it right now. Let's do it next year. And I think that's the approach that we need to have with our budgets. You know, if there are things that we need, let's do it. If there's things that we like, let's discuss it and see if it comes in. So moving along with that, two questions that, again, may not be able to answer here, and I'm sorry, Mr. Road and Safety, you're sitting here on the hot seat, is, and this isn't a you thing, it's a general thing. So the contingency, is it a charter, yes or no? Is it a council procedure that says, whoa, slow down? The contingency is the contingency. Anytime you want to spend money out of that, come to council and get approval. So we really know what the contingency is being used for. The other thing with that is, how confident are we in our estimates for this year? Because unless my math is wrong, there's like a $500,000 difference between what was allocated and what the estimate is. So do we dare say some of the things that you are thinking of purchasing or doing in fiscal year 26, and I was kind of like, hurry up and let's get it done, do it now. Because as the deputy mayor was saying, we're kind of taxing people just because. Oh, let me phrase that, sorry, just in case. But we have $500,000 that even if we only use 75% of it, that literally drops fiscal year 26 expenditures $400,000. And if we take that and look at switching 100,000 of this year's money into the contingency for next year, then we have a better way of looking and monitoring what's being done, how, why, what the purpose is. Are there truly situations where we need to use the contingency? So if you do, I know I'm making you here, you know, I know they're expensive. A new floor machine is ridiculously expensive. But if it dies, it's in the contingency. Come and say, hey, council, I need $89,000 for this new machine. Can we do it? Yeah, okay, let's do it, but that wipes out half the contingency. So I guess I'm just making a global soapbox speech, I guess, on let's look at how we can really reduce the budget a little way. Because the other part to that is, I understand that we're using our reserve in fiscal year 26, but here's my thing. I don't know what the 5-year revenue forecast is, so we may be at 20, 23, 24% now, but in 3 years, is that bucket going to be back down to 15%? And then, because what used to be acceptable, 8% 10 years ago, good luck with that. I mean, so what are we looking at for the next 5 years? And that could, if we know in 5 years that our cash reserve is going to maintain that 20%, then I would say, you know what? Let's use more of that bucket in fiscal year 26 so we can keep the impact to our, and I know I'm looking at you because I guess you know the numbers I'm talking about, keep the impact to the residents less. And I know, again, you're sitting here, so you're kind of like, why is he doing this with me sitting there? But I guess, let me get off my soapbox, because I think that's where I
To help answer what you're saying too, you also have to factor in the cost of in-house work.
Yeah.
With contractual labor.
Yep.
And that's the whole point of breaking it down to numbers that we had for contractual services where they're at, and then what you have for increases within products and material that stays in-house, that has our people doing this. You have to, like, just like it was said before, in-house is gonna be able to stretch that dollar a lot further. If that was to be sent out to a third party or any sort of sub, that's gonna cost us a considerable amount more. It's gonna factor into that, and that goes into a contractual services budget.
Unlike your budget, I guess what hits me is we have a line, and it's always budget. Let's just say 50,000 for discussion, 50,000. But we only spend 20. We only spend 25. But every single year, we still budget 50. So my whole thing is, I can understand increasing based on cost of living, but at some point, do we just say, hey, in the past 5 years, we've only used max 30,000. Let's start with 30,000, put in a plan what we're gonna do, and then whatever that cost of living increases. And we know, you're absolutely right, the cost of labor is ridiculous when we talk about contracting out. So, I like doing things in-house. So I understand what you're saying. Trust me, it's a battle, because all it takes is one break, and you're like, oh my God, where is it?
Yeah.
So I do get it, and I appreciate you spending time to explain and show your passion about this. But I guess not your budget, but globally, the way we handle a budget deserves a bigger conversation. But you did an excellent job.
It's not
Exploring
just
your
me.
passion.
It's
Yeah, I'm
collectively,
sure. Yep.
between the three we have in
Yep.
here, the mayor and Mr. Uas were a huge help. It can't just go to me, it's all around. It's not just me along with the staff that's here. Everybody has their opinions put in, and we do this collectively. So it's done the most responsible way that we can.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, do you have another question?
I have a question for you, actually. So looking at our, Councilor Norris stole some of my questions for later in our budget season, but because trying to stick to your schedule for discussing the budget, we have Groton Utilities presenting on May 5th, correct?
Yep.
At a mayor and council, and then,
So right now, this will finish the budget presentation. It comes to you on the third week in May, as required by the charter, for your vote. If you want to make a change, I'll need that information so that we can input it, and then we'll need to review it before then. We can review it,
well, that was gonna be my question.
we'll need to review it on the 12th, right, on the Cal?
That's what I was gonna ask. Can we put it on the agenda for,
It's- Yeah, it's already gonna be on the agenda for the
Okay.
12th. But that will be, so what we wanna get then is any final questions that you have, any final changes, recommendations that you have, and then, of course, those changes will need to be, discussed, debated amongst the council members, and then agreed to as a consensus. And then, we'll have the final budget that will come to you on the 19th.
okay, because
Does that make sense, or am I out? Am I off? on
Yeah,
that?
yeah, for the most part. I mean, if there's a consensus that's reached on the next committee of the whole, then we can incorporate that in the whereas of the resolution. In the past, we have not included that in the whereas of the resolution. It was, the changes were decided on the night of the vote as to what was gonna be moved around. And then when we update the budget, we do put it in the budget book as to what the changes were. The council's changes versus from the mayor's original budget.
well, because I know that we're done with all of these department presentations, but I know that I'm going to take into account Groton Utilities budget into my questions probably. So that's why I was wanting to make sure that
Groton
we'll have a
Utilities
chance
budget
on the
is
12th.
On the 5th.
Okay, so we'll have time on the 12th to ask additional questions or whatever.
That is
That's my
correct.
question. Thank you.
But my recommendation is, if you have questions, get the questions to us in advance so that we can have answers for you. And if you have recommendations on any changes, it would be nice if I had those in advance so that we can, I don't know if we want to, how we want to handle that, Ron, but, if we have them in advance, then we can at least talk about them.
So we are discussing the GU budgets at the mayor and council and not at the committee of the whole?
It was told that there was gonna be a special cow on May 5th for
There's a
GU.
special-
Oh, okay. I
There's
just
a
wanted
special
clarification for myself because I was under the assumption it was going to the regular cow.
Now, so we're talking about two different budgets. Let me talk about the GU budget. I think a link was sent to you guys. The budgets were sent and a link was sent so that you can see what was presented to the Groton Utilities Commission. And then you can review that, and that will help get you prepared for the presentation. The presentation of the GU budget tends to be a higher level presentation to the council. But I think you know that because you were here last year when we did that. And then for our budget, we will review it at the Committee of the Whole on the 12th. Councilor Norris.
So, I think what I heard you say. I don't feel.
Go ahead. You have the floor, sir.
Council will. Thank you. Council will discuss, or can discuss, the budget here on May 12th.
That's correct. That's Committee of the Whole
And we have to approve the budget on the
on the 19th.
19th.
That's according to the charter.
Is it possible, I don't remember how long it takes to go through the GU budget, could we also add on the 5th to have prelim discussions on the budget after GU?
Sure.
I don't know how other folks feel, I'm just throwing it out there.
I mean,
I feel if
we add it and then the GU budget takes too long, we can just skip and do it.
That's fine. We'll add it.
Okay.
So, City Clerk, please put that on, we'll put that on the special Committee of the Whole. GU budget first, and then just put budget presentation in general, so that opens the whole budget up for discussion. Councilor Norris.
Is it possible between now and the 5th, actually, it's in 2 weeks, to answer the question regarding the contingency? If,
What is the question regarding contingency?
can we is it possible to have a discussion on council be more in tune with how and when the contingency is spent?
I don't understand the question. What? You want to have a discussion on that?
Well, a part of me.
We can have that discussion on the 5th when we talk about the budget.
Well, a part of me feels like the broader question is, every time contingency money is spent, let me phrase that. Anytime there's thought of using contingency money, should it come to council first? And I guess that's the question that I think the councilors should discuss, yes or no. Is it
Ron, take
every
that.
dollar? Is it a threshold? You know,
Take that as a note. We can come back and we can discuss
right,
our recommendation philosophy to the council.
right. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Depot?
So just to that same end, like looking in here, we haven't spent the contingency this current fiscal year nor the one prior, correct? Can you also provide when the last time we used contingency funds was and how much, and like what it was for?
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Bill. Ron?
I'd just like to ask, like the mayor said, if you could even review the GU budgets and try to get all your questions, just because there's a lot of people that have input into that, so we can get the right answers, so we don't have a room full, that we can try to get those ahead of time. And then also any additional questions that you may have on the budget, on any department or as a whole, if you could just get those over, just that way we can be prepared for that discussion.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Depot?
So I looked in my email quickly, and I don't see an email with the GU budget in it. Do you know when it was sent, or like what week it was sent, or about when?
That would have been sent by Maureen,
By Maureen?
Maureen French. I was told it was sent along with the link.
And I remember getting it last year, because
Well, I know, but we sent it,
So-
my understanding is it was sent this year.
I don't see it.
Okay? Danny, let's take a note on that. I'll reach out to Maureen.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Bill, you're done, thank you. So there's a thing on here for Public Works Council Chambers Electrical. I'm removing that because it doesn't need to come to council. All right, with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, council, for coming out. And thank you for your reviews and your comments.
Recording stopped.